Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to my channel to follow my stories. Your support means the world to me, and I'm sending love to all of you. For those of you visiting my channel for the first time, please make sure to subscribe and like the video, so our creepy community can grow faster and you can get more horror stories. Tonight, I've got 3 brand new horror stories for you, all centered around the theme of the night shift. I'm so excited to hear what you think. Stick around until the end of the video, and don't forget to drop a comment to let me know how you like the stories. Night shift at Pineview Psychiatric was always the hardest. Not because of the patients. Most were heavily sedated by 10 p.m. It was the silence that got to you. The way it amplified every little sound. The hum of fluorescent lights. The squeaking of my shoes on linoleum. The occasional muffled scream from the maximum security wing. I was doing my usual rounds when Sarah from reception called. "Doctor, your daughter's here." I checked my watch. 11:47 p.m. What? Emily's supposed to be at home with the sitter. She says Mrs. Peterson got sick and dropped her off. Should I send her up? Something felt wrong. Mrs. Peterson had never missed a night in 3 years. But Emily was already here, and I couldn't leave her alone downstairs. Fine, send her up to my office. 10 minutes later, Emily burst through my door crying, "Daddy, I saw the girl again." I sighed. Ever since her mother's death, Emily'd been seeing things. Her therapist called it grief manifestation. Common in 8-year-olds who'd lost a parent. Where this time, sweetheart? In the special rooms, the ones with the big locks. My blood ran cold. The maximum security wing was completely restricted. Even I needed 3 separate key cards to get in. "Emily, that's impossible. Those doors are always locked." But Mr. Jenkins let me look. He said there was a special patient who wanted to meet me. Jenkins, our new night guard. Something about him had always seemed off. "What did you see exactly?" "A girl, Daddy. She was all curled up in the corner. Her face was scary, all twisted and dark. But you know what's really weird?" I could barely speak. "What?" "She looked just like the girl from the newspaper, the one they never found. But Mr. Jenkins said not to worry. Soon I'd look just like her too." The lights flickered. Down the hall, I heard a door slowly creak open, and footsteps, heavy ones, coming closer. I grabbed Emily's hand and ran for the emergency exit. Behind us, Jenkins' voice echoed through the corridor. "Dr. Cooper, don't you want to see my collection?" We made it to my car. I called the police. They found 6 bodies in Jenkins' basement, all little girls, all matching unsolved missing persons cases. In his work locker, they found dozens of employee files, each one marked with a red X, except for mine. Mine had a note. "Your daughter has such pretty eyes, just like all the others." Emily never saw the girl again, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear footsteps in the hall, and I wonder, what did she really see in that locked room? Because Jenkins died in prison last month, and yesterday a new night guard started. He has the same smile. I've been working as a night security guard at Oakwood Retirement Home for 8 years now. Night shifts have always been quiet. Most residents are asleep, and those who aren't usually just need help getting to the bathroom. Sometimes someone can't sleep, so we talk about the old days. That night I was doing my usual rounds when I noticed the light in room 237 was still on. Mrs. Henderson was usually out like a light by 9 p.m. I knocked softly and entered. "Mrs. Henderson, everything okay?" The room was empty. The bed was neatly made, as if no one had slept in it. On the nightstand sat a cup of coffee, still steaming. I knew something was wrong. Mrs. Henderson hadn't had coffee in years because of her heart condition. I turned to leave and alert the other staff when I heard a voice behind me. "Sit with me for a while." I turned around. In the armchair by the window sat a young woman, maybe in her 30s. She wore a nurse's uniform, but I'd never seen her at Oakwood before. "Who are you? Where's Mrs. Henderson?" "Oh, she's fine. They're all fine." She smiled. "You know, it's fascinating how people fear death, how they run from it, build places like this to extend life as long as possible." Something in her voice chilled me to the bone. She was too calm, too satisfied. "What did you do with the residents?" "Nothing that wasn't already meant to happen." She stood and walked to the window. "Do you know why I'm here?" "Your death." She laughed. "No, I'm not death, I am life." I felt the world spin. This had to be a dream. "People always misunderstand me," she continued. "They think death is the greatest evil, but it's not. Do you know what's the worst thing you can do to a living being?" I couldn't speak. Force it to live forever. She turned to face me. "That's what I do. I give people what they think they want. Endless life. And you know what happens? After enough time, they realize it's the worst punishment." "Where are the residents?" "Oh, they're still here. Every single one of them. And they'll be here forever. Their bodies will age and die, but they'll wake up in a new body, in a new room, over and over again. Some have been here for hundreds of years." I tried to run, but my legs felt like lead. "Don't worry," she said softly. "I won't give you that gift. You're the first guard in 50 years who actually cared about the residents, who listened to them, treated them like people, not numbers." She came closer and put her hand on my shoulder. Her touch was simultaneously warm and ice cold. "But I need to ask something of you. Deliver a message to the world. Tell them to stop building places like this, to stop extending life at any cost. Death isn't the enemy. I am." The next thing I remember is waking up at my desk. The morning shift was already coming in. Everything looked normal. But when I checked the resident records, room 237 was empty. It had always been empty, for 50 years. I'm writing this as a warning. Don't fear death. Fear endless life. Because somewhere out there, in the hallways of nursing homes, hospitals and hospices, she walks and gives people what they think they want. And the scariest part, sometimes at night, when I pass by the closed doors, I hear them talking. Always the same conversations over and over again. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear them begging for a death that will never come. I've worked as a night security guard at the old Riverside paper mill on the outskirts of Burlington for 7 years now. It's not a bad gig, decent pay, and I spend most nights alone in my booth watching Netflix. There's just one strange rule. I must be in my security booth between 3:15 and 3:45 a.m. 30 minutes when I'm not allowed to patrol the complex. That's the first thing they tell you when you get hired. Never leave your booth between 3:15 and 3:45. Miss Harrison, the facility manager, made me sign a special document about it. I figured it had something to do with EPA inspections. Maybe they checked the chemical levels during that time or something. But that's not the only peculiar thing. All night shift workers get substantially higher wages, full medical, paid sick leave, even a college fund for our kids. None of us ever miss work, never get sick, and our children are all honor roll students. It's like we're touched by some weird luck. I spent my first 3 months training with Mike. He'd been here for 15 years by then. He showed me the routine, when and where to patrol, how to log everything. Every night at 3:10, he'd chase me back to my booth. "Listen carefully," he'd say. "You'll hear the machine start up. That's normal. But whatever you hear, don't leave your booth and don't look out the window. Got it?" Of course I heard the machines. Every night at exactly 3:15, I'd hear them running. Even though they were all powered down, the sound would last exactly 30 minutes, then everything would go quiet. 4 months ago, we got a new hire, Jason. Fresh out of college, eager kid. He hit it off with everyone, especially Mike. Mike trained him, just like he trained me. Last week, Jason didn't show up for work, which was odd because nobody ever misses a shift here. Mike was agitated, kept checking his watch. At 3:10, he didn't even remind me to get back to my booth. He was already rushing toward Jason's. Maybe that's why I forgot too. Maybe Mike's hurry confused me so much I lost track of time. At 3:17, I was still in the hallway, heading back to my booth. I heard the machine start up first, but this time the sound was different, like the machines were singing. Then I saw light seeping under Jason's booth door. Mike stood in front, his hand on the doorknob. He turned to me and spoke in Jason's voice. "Wanna see?" I ran back to my booth and locked the door. That night, the machine sounds were louder than ever. Through the walls, I heard different voices. Jason's, Mike's, voices I didn't recognize, all calling me to come out. The next morning, Mike's booth was empty. I found a manila folder on his desk. Inside were newspaper clippings, articles about missing workers over the past 50 years. All disappeared during the night shift. Under the articles was a list of names. Mike's was second to last. Mine was last, not crossed out yet. I quit that same day, but the luck that had followed us, that disappeared too. My kid got sick the following week. My wife lost her job, like we were being hit with everything that had passed us by for years. Yesterday, I got a call from Miss Harrison. She offered double pay to come back, said she understood my fear, but I needed to know the whole story. "Some things must be fed," she said, "and some must feed. Isn't that a small price for happiness?" Tonight's my first shift back, but this time I'm going in with purpose, because there's a third option, to be a feeder, not food. Mike showed me that night. That's why he called out in Jason's voice. He was trying to warn me, to show me the way. At 3:15, I won't be in my booth. I'll be outside Jason's with a list of new names. Because someone has to feed the machines, and some have to become feeders.